The address appeared in the third missing persons report within 2 months, 341 Hendrick Street. A modest 2-story home with a cracked sidewalk and a lockbox on the front porch. The kind of place that blended into a neighborhood of short-term leases, student renters, and corporate relocation packages. Nothing about it stood out except for the pattern. All 3 reports involved people who had rented the house. Different times, different platforms. No overlap in the booking dates, no obvious connections between them. One was a traveling nurse, another a remote tech worker, and the third an aspiring musician who never showed up for her next gig. They all disappeared without a trace, their luggage still in the bedroom, their cars parked out front. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just silence. Jason Langley, a freelance journalist with a personal blog and a reputation for chasing what he called the soft corners of hard stories, came across the pattern while researching a piece on tenant screening loopholes. At first he thought it was coincidence, but the more he looked, the stranger it got. There were no long-term tenants on record for 341 Hendricks. According to the local rental board, the house had been owned by a shell company since 2015 and had cycled through dozens of short-term renters. Some stayed a few weeks, others a few months. Most left reviews. But scattered among them were blank spaces, months where no listings existed, despite financial activity tied to the address. Rental income, utility usage, packages delivered. And yet, when Jason pulled the public records, something stood out. The water usage never dropped to 0. Even during vacant periods, the pipes ran daily, small amounts. Enough to suggest someone was still living there, but no one was supposed to be. Jason booked a stay under a fake name, using an untraceable account and a burner phone. He didn't bring much, just a duffel bag, a notebook, and a GoPro disguised as a smoke detector. He set it up in the living room. Nothing fancy, just pointed at the hallway. The house smelled faintly of bleach, the kind of clean that felt recent, like someone had wiped down surfaces in a hurry. The furniture was cheap, functional. A mattress on a metal frame, folding chairs in the dining room, a single shelf of books, mostly travel guides and self-help titles. No photos, no personal items, nothing left behind by former guests, except one thing. Behind the washing machine in the basement, Jason found a rolled-up grocery bag. Inside, a hairbrush, a keychain, and a flash drive. He plugged it into his laptop that night. There were video files, dozens, all unlabeled. The first showed a woman cooking in the kitchen. The second, a man brushing his teeth in the upstairs bathroom. Different people, different times, same angle, same grainy perspective, like a camera mounted inside the vent. Someone had been watching the tenants. He shut the laptop, heart pounding. The house was quiet, too quiet. No footsteps overhead, no cars outside. Just the hum of the fridge and the knowledge that if someone had been recording all of this, they had access to every room, including the one he was sleeping in. Jason didn't sleep. He lay fully clothed on the couch, laptop closed but still within reach, listening for the smallest sound. He kept telling himself this was just research, just data collection. But there was something about the stillness of the house that made everything feel curated, like a stage waiting for someone to enter from the wings. The next morning he examined the vents. In the bathroom he found a small rectangular cut in the metal behind the ceiling, grill just wide enough to fit a pinhole camera. In the bedroom closet, a ceiling tile had been tampered with. Jason used his phone's flashlight to peer inside. Wires, electrical tape, a tiny blinking LED. Someone had wired this house like a studio. He spent the day combing through the rest of the flash drive's contents. The footage was chronological, spanning years. Not all of it was sinister. Some clips were boring, mundane, renters watching TV, folding laundry. But every so often a new face would appear and the tone would shift. Long pauses near windows. People speaking on phones in hushed tones. A man pacing the kitchen at 2 a.m. visibly agitated. Then came the final folder. It contained just 5 files, all time-stamped within a single week. Each video began the same, the renter entering a room and never re-emerging. The camera kept rolling, but they simply didn't come out. Jason fast-forwarded each video, watching hours tick by. No exit, no sign of movement. Like something had interrupted them mid-action and removed them from the frame. The videos always ended with the same static, a short, almost imperceptible flicker. Less like distortion and more like an intentional cut. Jason documented everything. Photos of the vents, copies of the files. He didn't contact the police. Not yet. He wanted a fuller picture first. He explored the basement again, tapping on walls, checking behind shelves. One corner was colder than the rest. The concrete looked newer there, less stained, slightly elevated. He knocked. Hollow. There was a door, seamless and unmarked, but with faint scuffing near the base. Jason pried gently with a flathead screwdriver. It opened inward, revealing a narrow passage with steep wooden stairs descending into darkness. He hesitated, flashlight in hand. The walls were close, unfinished. The kind of crawl space you only saw in very old homes. But it kept going. At the bottom, the passage widened slightly into a small, windowless room. The air was heavy, damp, smelled of plastic and dust. Inside, a twin bed, neatly made, a table, a small monitor, and a stack of storage drives in a locked cabinet. There was no dust on anything. Someone had been living here recently. Jason turned to leave and heard the faint click of a latch behind him. He wasn't alone in the house anymore. Jason didn't run. He listened. Upstairs, the faintest creak echoed through the vents, deliberate, weight-shifting, like someone testing each floorboard. The kind of careful pacing that suggested the walker already knew someone was below. Jason killed his flashlight and crouched beside the wall, trying to steady his breath. The basement door hadn't slammed. It had been closed. Silently. Whoever had come in either had a key or had been waiting for the right moment to return. His phone had no signal, no Wi-Fi this deep underground. He scanned the space again. The monitor showed 4 live feeds: kitchen, hallway, bedroom, and basement stairs. Static on that one. Jason checked the cabinet. Locked. The drawers, the bed frame, the underside of the table. Nothing useful. Just a pile of old receipts, disposable gloves, and wires zip-tied in neat coils. The kind of inventory a person keeps when they expect to come back. Footsteps again. Closer. Slower. Then silence. Jason moved back toward the crawl space tunnel. He reached it just as the monitor flickered back on. For half a second, the basement camera feed was live, and he saw himself from behind. He turned. No one was there, he didn't think. He moved, Crawling fast through the narrow tunnel, scraping his shoulder against the wall, he emerged into the main basement and sprinted up the stairs. The house was empty. The front door was open. No vehicle outside. No sign of life on the street. But someone had been there. Not squatting, living. He left. Drove 6 hours without stopping, then uploaded everything anonymously to a journalist forum. Files, images, video, timestamps, full write-up. He didn't add his name. He didn't want credit, just eyes on the story. The listing for the rental disappeared 2 days later. When he tried to revisit the page, it redirected to a new property. Different state. Same owner. Jason dug deeper. He found variations of the same house. Different exteriors, slightly tweaked layouts, but always with an unusual clause in the rental agreement. Tenants had to stay at least 30 days. No sublets, no early departures. Each property changed hands every 8 to 10 months. Each had a local caretaker, never photographed, always listed by first name only. The renters who went missing, not always reported. Some had no nearby family. Some were transients. Some were quietly replaced by new listings. Jason kept investigating. But now he notices things. The same car parked across from his building for 3 days straight. An envelope slid under his door with no markings, just a flash drive containing an audio recording of him talking in his sleep. Every house has its secrets. Some don't stay behind when you leave. It started as a practical course project. Document and digitally reconstruct a late 19th century Victorian home scheduled for demolition. The structure stood just outside the city limits, fenced off, silent and forgotten. The historical architecture students were given 1 week to gather photos, sketches, and any salvageable blueprints from the archive. 4 of them took the lead: Nathan, Jules, Lee, and Carter, driving out every afternoon to climb through the side gate and into the dust-heavy stillness of the building. From the outside, the house was symmetrical. Mansard roof, wraparound porch, 3 visible floors, attic dormers sealed shut. Inside, it was the usual mess of water damage, mold, and collapsing plaster. They split the work: floor plans, window measurements, staircase geometry. Every room was logged and mapped. Back on campus, Carter found something strange in the original architectural prints. The house was designed with an extra room on the 2nd floor, labeled Cabinet No. 5. Not a storage space, more like an office or study. It had a window to the rear courtyard, a doorway between the nursery and the 2nd staircase, and a ceiling vent that connected to the main flue. But in the modern floor scans and site photos, there was no sign of it. No door, no window, no space where it should have been. They assumed it had been walled off or repurposed. But the measurements didn't add up. If you took the external dimensions of the house and subtracted the total interior square footage, there was a small void, roughly 8 by 10 feet, with no access point. When they tried to triangulate it from their laser scans, the software glitched, reporting inconsistent values as if something was absorbing the signal or throwing it off by inches. They returned to the house and double-checked every hallway. No sealed door, no bricked-up arch. They examined the baseboards, tapped walls, lifted dusty curtains, and measured each wall with tape. Still nothing. But when Jules reviewed the photos from their first visit, she noticed something unsettling. The 2nd floor window that should belong to Cabinet No. 5 was visible in one shot, but only from the outside. a narrow vertical window tucked between two attic slits. It didn't appear in any interior photos. From inside, that wall was bare. They huddled in the architecture lab, pulling up satellite images and historical references. In the earliest photos, the window was clearly there. By the mid-'80s, it was boarded up. By 2001, it was gone, just smooth shingles over a blank spot. No permit had ever been filed for structural alteration. Nathan joked it must have been a phantom room, a drafting error or some misplaced dream from the original architect. But then Carter discovered a strange note in the building's restoration log, an entry from 1987, written by a city engineer. Do not reopen cabinet No. 5. Request denied. Nothing else. No context. The next day, they went back, focused entirely on that missing space. Inside, the wall where the room should have been felt unusually solid. Not plaster on lath, but something heavier. They used a thermal scanner to check for temperature variation. The screen flickered, failed, then displayed a shape, faint, almost human-sized, lingering in the empty cavity. Nathan dismissed it as interference from water damage or metal pipes, but Jules noticed something else. In a corner of the hallway photo taken the day before, there was a reflection in a picture frame on the wall, a distorted silhouette in the glass, standing directly where the doorway should have been. But no one had been standing there, and the picture frame was covered in dust, too thick to reflect anything at all. They returned with permission from their professor to conduct a more thorough investigation. This time Carter brought equipment from the engineering department, ground-penetrating radar, humidity sensors, and a borescope camera on a fiber-optic cable. The mission was simple: confirm the presence of a sealed space behind the second-floor wall and document any structural anomalies. The house greeted them with its usual silence, though something about the air on the second floor had changed. Colder, heavier. They set up in the hallway where cabinet No. 5 should have opened and scanned the wall surface. The readings were confusing, hollow in some places but showing no change in material density. Just empty volume hidden behind perfectly normal studs. They drilled a narrow hole just above the baseboard and fed in the camera. The footage came back dark at first, then adjusted. What it revealed was unmistakable: a small, enclosed room untouched by light or movement for decades. Wallpaper identical to the rest of the hallway, but cracked and peeling. A small wooden desk, a high-backed chair, a wall-mounted bookshelf with nothing on it, and directly in the center of the floor, a ring of scratch marks in the dust, as if the chair had been pushed back recently. That was impossible. The room was fully sealed. Jules rewound the camera footage, thinking they had recorded someone else's vandalism or a prank. But the marks hadn't been there at first. They appeared only after a few seconds of feed, like something inside had shifted when no one was watching. Lee suggested opening the wall, but Carter refused. He wasn't afraid, he insisted, just cautious. Something about the hidden room was off. The proportions felt wrong. The depth didn't match the external wall, and the ceiling, briefly visible in the footage, showed an overhead fixture that hadn't existed anywhere else in the house. A circular brass plate with 4 hanging wires, all frayed at the ends. Nathan ran another thermal scan, and this time the image came back sharply, too sharply. Not a human figure, but the outline of the desk and chair, warm against the cold of the sealed room, as if they had been used recently. The timestamp on the scan was accurate, and no one had physically entered the space. They left in silence that evening, uneasy with their discovery but unsure how to explain it without sounding irrational. That night, Carter reviewed all the building's renovation permits again and discovered an older blueprint, this one from 1934. On it, Cabinet No. 5 was crossed out in red pencil, and the room's dimensions labeled incorrect, deeper than measured. A handwritten note beside it read, "Area does not match physical interior. Suspect false floor or deeper cavity. Avoid." It wasn't just sealed. It was deliberately concealed and documented as an architectural anomaly. The next morning, they found their digital floor plan corrupted. Every time they tried to export the layout, the software replaced one of the rooms with a simple black rectangle. The metadata labeled it undefined. The source files worked fine until they tried to include the hallway with Cabinet No. 5. The glitch didn't stop there. Jules found her camera roll overwritten. Several photos from the second-floor hallway now showed blank walls where there had once been mirrors. In one, her own reflection was missing. In another, a photo of the group taken in front of the staircase. There was a fifth figure in the background, blurred, gray, partially hidden behind the wall. They hadn't brought anyone else. That night, Nathan didn't respond to messages. By morning, he had dropped from all class group chats. When Carter called, the phone rang twice and went silent. They drove to his apartment. Empty. No signs of struggle. No signs of anything. Just one thing out of place. His class folder on the kitchen counter, open to the blueprint, with Cabinet No. 5 circled in black ink, and underneath it, a note scrawled on a torn sheet of paper. It opens from the inside. Carter waited 3 days before returning to the house. He went alone. He brought no scanner, no camera, no laptop, just a flashlight and a copy of the 1934 blueprint rolled tightly in his backpack. The others stopped responding after Nathan disappeared. Lee claimed to have dropped the class. Jules deleted the project files and refused to acknowledge the house ever existed. But Carter couldn't let it go. The air inside was warmer this time. No breeze, no distant creaks, just a waiting stillness. He moved quickly up the stairs and stopped in front of the wall that once held Cabinet No. 5. He pressed his palm to it. Nothing unusual, plaster over framing. But the silence, it was complete. He couldn't hear his own breath. His heartbeat felt like it echoed inside his skull. He crouched and pulled up the baseboard again. The small inspection hole was still there, the dust around it undisturbed. He'd pushed the borescope in again. The chair had moved. It now faced the wall, directly toward where Carter stood. And on the desk a shape, not clear at first, just a shadow in the feed. But as the lens adjusted, it resolved into a notebook. One Carter hadn't seen in the previous footage. He leaned closer, almost pressing his ear to the wall. No sound. Then a flicker. The camera feed went white, static. He yanked it out and backed away. Something had changed. And now that he was paying attention, he noticed it. The proportions of the hallway were off. Too long. The angle between the wall and ceiling didn't match the rest of the house. The door frames looked newer, subtly different in trim and height. He pulled out the old blueprint and laid it flat on the floor. The dimensions matched what they'd originally scanned, but now the hallway was too wide, by almost a full foot. He stood, turned to leave, and froze. The staircase was gone. just a flat, unbroken wall behind him. The same wallpaper, the same color, but no railing, no downward steps, no exit. Carter didn't move. He checked the other direction. Still the hallway, but it now had 7 doors. The house originally had 5. He walked slowly past each one. None had handles, all flush with the wall, as if decorative, except the 5th. The 5th door had a smudge of black on the frame, dust disturbed by a hand. It opened before he touched it. The room inside was smaller than it had appeared in the camera feed, more cramped. The chair was overturned, the desk empty. The brass ceiling fixture hung directly above, its frayed wires swaying gently, though the air was perfectly still. On the wall, a fresh drawing, in charcoal or maybe soot. A rough floor plan, the house, the hallway, the hidden room. And in the center, written in block letters, "Measure again." He turned to leave, but the doorway no longer opened to the hallway. Just another wall, and behind him the light fixture had stopped swaying. But something still moved, something in the ceiling. Not footsteps, not breathing, just the slow drag of nails on wood, as if someone above was tracing the lines of the blueprint again and again, waiting for the measurements to finally match.